the life and musical career of David Bowie, a starman who forever changed music. David Bowie, born David Robert Jones on January 8, 1947, in Brixton, London, was not just a musician. He was a visionary, a cultural chameleon, and a boundary-pushing artist who influenced generations. From his groundbreaking music to his dramatic reinventions of persona, Bowie revolutionized rock and pop culture. His career, spanning over 5 decades, saw him transition from a struggling artist in the 1960s to one of the most iconic musicians of all time. This blog post delves into the life, musical journey, and enduring impact of David Bowie, the man who fell to earth, made it his canvas, and became immortal through his art. David Robert Jones was born into a working-class family. His mother, Margaret Mary Peggy Jones, worked as a waitress, while his father, Haywood Steenton John Jones, was a promotions officer. Bowie showed a keen interest in music from an early age, inspired by artists like Little Richard, Elvis Presley, and jazz greats such as John Coltrane. At age 9, his voice and dancing abilities caught the attention of his teachers, marking the beginning of his passion for the performing arts. By the time he was 15, Bowie had picked up the saxophone and formed his first band, the Conrads. However, his breakthrough was far from immediate. In the early 1960s, Bowie adopted the stage name David Bowie to avoid confusion with Davy Jones of the Monkees. His early music, heavily influenced by the British rock and mod scene, was commercially unsuccessful. He released several singles that went unnoticed, and his first self-titled album in 1967, an attempt to emulate Anthony Newley's vaudeville style, failed to chart. While his early career was filled with frustration and missed opportunities, Bowie was honing the artistry that would later define him, an interest in theatricality, sci-fi themes, and the ability to constantly reinvent himself. Everything changed in 1969 when Bowie released Space Oddity, a song about an astronaut named Major Tom, lost in space. Released just days before the Apollo 11 moon landing, the song captured the zeitgeist and became Bowie's first hit, reaching the top 5 in the UK charts. This marked the beginning of Bowie's embrace of sci-fi themes and space imagery, which would become integral to his persona in the early 1970s. However, it wasn't until 1972 that Bowie's real breakthrough came with the release of The Rise and Fall of Ziggy Stardust and the Spiders from Mars. The album introduced the world to Ziggy Stardust, Bowie's flamboyant, androgynous alter ego, an alien rock star sent to Earth to deliver a message of hope. The character, blending elements of glam rock, science fiction, and Bowie's own fascination with fame, resonated with disaffected youth and gave him an international following. Ziggy Stardust wasn't just a persona, it was a complete performance. Bowie's live shows during this era were theatrical spectacles, full of dazzling costumes, elaborate makeup, and sexually ambiguous posturing. Songs like Starman, Suffragette City, and Rock and Roll Suicide became instant classics. Bowie's ability to blur the lines between man and myth, reality and fantasy, marked him as a pioneering figure in rock music. While Ziggy catapulted Bowie to stardom, it was also a period of personal turmoil. The pressures of living as Ziggy Stardust, combined with a growing addiction to cocaine, took a toll on Bowie's mental and physical health. In 1973, he killed Ziggy Stardust during a final performance at the Hammersmith Odeon, signaling his desire to move on from the character that had both made him famous and trapped him. After the demise of Ziggy, Bowie continued to evolve musically and personally. His next persona, the Thin White Duke, was introduced with the album Station to Station, 1976, an exploration of funk, soul, and the emerging influence of electronic music. However, during this period, Bowie's drug addiction worsened. His lifestyle in Los Angeles, marked by heavy cocaine use and erratic behavior, became infamous. It was also during this time that Bowie released Young Americans, 1975, featuring the chart-topping single Fame, co-written with John Lennon. In 1976, seeking refuge from both his fame and addiction, Bowie relocated to Berlin, Germany, where he embarked on one of the most experimental phases of his career. Collaborating with producer Brian Eno, Bowie produced what would become known as the Berlin Trilogy: Low, Heroes, and Lodger. These albums, released between 1977 and 1979, blended avant-garde experimentation, ambient music, and traditional rock. The Berlin years were also marked by his rediscovery of sobriety and a return to artistic clarity. The track Heroes, from the album of the same name, remains one of Bowie's most enduring anthems, capturing the optimism of two lovers standing by the Berlin Wall. The albums, while initially polarizing, are now considered some of Bowie's most innovative work, influencing genres from post-punk to electronica. The 1980s brought Bowie to even greater mainstream success. His album Scary Monsters and Super Creeps, 1980, was a commercial success, and the single Ashes to Ashes revisited the character of Major Tom in a more introspective, mature light. The song became a major hit in the UK, showing Bowie's ability to retain relevance even as musical trends shifted. In 1983, Bowie released Let's Dance, which was produced by Nile Rodgers. The album was a departure from his previous experimental work, embracing pop and dance music. With hits like Let's Dance, China Girl, and Modern Love, Bowie reached a new level of global popularity. His music videos, particularly for Let's Dance, were emblematic of the MTV era, further cementing his status as a visual as well as a musical icon. However, Bowie's success in the 1980s was not without its artistic compromises. Some critics viewed his work during this period as overly commercial, a sharp contrast to the daring experimentalism of his 1970s output. Albums like Tonight, 1984, and Never Let Me Down, 1987, received lukewarm responses, and Bowie later expressed dissatisfaction with much of his output during this decade. The 1990s saw Bowie continuing to experiment, this time with industrial and electronic sounds. His 1995 album Outside, a concept album about art, murder, and dystopian themes, reunited him with Brian Eno. In 1997, Bowie embraced the emerging trends of drum and bass and jungle music with the release of Earthling, which included the frenetic single Little Wonder. Despite mixed critical reception to his 90s work, Bowie remained an influential figure. His collaborations with younger artists and his ability to absorb new musical styles kept him ahead of the curve. In 2004, after suffering a heart attack, Bowie largely retreated from public life. However, in 2013, after a 10-year hiatus, Bowie stunned the world by releasing The Next Day, a critically acclaimed album that revisited themes from throughout his career while offering fresh sounds. Bowie's final album, Black Star, was released on January 8, 2016, his 69th birthday, just 2 days before his death. The album was an artistic statement, filled with cryptic lyrics and jazz-inspired instrumentation. Songs like Lazarus were full of references to mortality and self-reflection, a fitting farewell from an artist who had always been conscious of his own mythology. Unbeknownst to the public, Bowie had been battling liver cancer for 18 months. His death on January 10th, 2016, sent shockwaves through the world. Fans and fellow artists mourned the loss of one of the most innovative and influential figures in music history. Black Star was hailed as one of Bowie's finest works and cemented his legacy as an artist who, even in his final moments, was pushing boundaries and reinventing himself. David Bowie's influence on music, fashion, and culture is immeasurable. He pioneered the idea of the musician as a shape-shifting persona, blending art with performance in a way that has influenced everyone from Madonna to Lady Gaga. His fearless approach to identity, gender, and sexuality helped pave the way for conversations about fluidity and self-expression. Bowie left behind a catalogue of 27 studio albums, each showcasing a restless spirit that was never content with standing still. He was not only a rock star, but also an actor, painter, and cultural commentator. His legacy lives on through his music, his influence on future generations of artists, and the indelible mark he left on popular culture. In the words of his own song, Bowie truly was a starman waiting in the sky, and though he has left this world, his star will continue to shine for years to come.
Thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe to Delving into the Deep for regular updates.